Our world is brimming with data, and this exponential growth has led to a surge in the number and rack capacity of data centers. The growing pressure on racks will apparently increase the heat generation, further necessitating more efficient cooling solutions to manage the thermal loads and mitigate the strain on resources, since cooling systems often consume approximately 50% of the total energy use. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Analytics Insight podcast, where we talk about the ever evolving tech space. And I'm your host, Priya Dayalani. Traditional air cooling methods become inadequate gradually to manage the thermal loads of modern, high density data centers, leading operators to seek more innovative cooling solutions. That's when liquid cooling comes into the picture because it enables higher computing densities, optimizing space utilization and costs. Let's welcome Vijay Sampath Kumar, Chief Business Officer of Refroid Technologies, also known as the Liquid Cooling Man of India, to discuss liquid cooling adoption in India, its impact on energy efficiency, and the need for sustainable data center architecture. Hi, Vijay. A very warm welcome to our podcast today.
Hi, Priya. Thank you so much. The preamble you gave about the growing heat and the importance of liquid cooling,
Hmm.
that was truly commendable. The amount of research you've done is amazing. Thank you so much for setting the platform, Ms. Priya.
Thank you so much, Vijay, for those kind words. And it's a pleasure to have you on our podcast today. And I think liquid cooling has gained, a lot of limelight, and I'm sure it's taking a lot of place on the headlines. But we are going to unlock more about it in our conversation today. But firstly, I would want to know more about Refroid Technologies, its specialization. Alongside that, a little bit more about you, Vijay. If you can tell us more about yourself, your journey till date, and what exactly is your role at Refroid today.
You asked me to talk about my favorite topic, myself. So happy to talk about it, Priya,
Right.
uh, on a lighter note. So, Priya, I started my career way back close to 3 decades before,
Mm-hmm.
where MS-DOS was a rocket science by itself. MS-DOS is Microsoft DOS, and I'm seeing the evolving growth of IT as a technology over a period of time. I had the pleasure and luxury of working with technology giants in compute and storage and networking and security. I'm seeing it constantly evolving over a period of 3 decades. To put it in very simple term, if we had even one 3 kilowatt rack, it was a massive rack size those days. And today we're talking casually, people are coming back in with 135, 150, 200 kilowatt racks. That's the evolution which I'm seeing in the period of last 3 decades, how the industry is moving. So very interesting journey and still a long way to go to see where we are. I had the pleasure of working with industry giants like Dell, Hitachi, Symantec. It's been a thorough, exciting journey which I had so far. That is on my side. And currently, I work with Refroid Technologies. Refroid is into liquid cooling solutions where we optimize the performance of the CPUs and GPUs in infrastructure. And we are an India headquartered company where all of our manufacturing happens in Hyderabad, India. So that's a
Right.
small journey about Refroid.
Mm-hmm.
And we are all hoping India will be the AI capital. And we want to be part of the ecosystem of the journey where we in Refroid say, we make in India, make for the world.
Right, definitely. I agree with you, Vijay, and thank you for that overview about yourself and also about Refroid. We are really glad and we are also inspired by your overall journey. And it's a testament to the power of innovation, resilience, and staying committed to creating meaningful impact. Great. With that context set in place, Vijay, let's move forward with our conversation. We did speak, about the rapid rise of AI. but it's also transforming the physical infrastructure that powers it. As organizations deploy more GPU intensive workloads, conversations are shifting beyond compute capacity to how these systems are cooled efficiently and sustainably. Again, liquid cooling has emerged as one of the most talked about innovations in this space, but opinions differ on how quickly it will become mainstream, especially in a market like India. So, do you view liquid cooling in India as a niche solution, a near term requirement for AI, or an eventual industry standard?
Priya,
Yes.
I'm assuming audible. I lost you in between. Okay.
Oh, okay. Were you
Mm,
able to hear my question, Vijay?
yeah, can you repeat the last part of it?
Yeah. So my question was, how do you view liquid cooling in India? Will it become a niche solution or just a near-term requirement for AI, or it will eventually become an industry standard?
It's a good question, Priya. In fact, very far-sighted question. I really appreciate your thought over it. Liquid cooling is here to stay, and it is no more futuristic. It is for today. Why? I'll answer that part of it. There was a time, you say 3 years before, not long ago, even 3 years before, I was not getting audience to discuss on liquid cooling. I literally used to knock the doors of every possible DC in the country, and nobody wanted to discuss primarily because they didn't see that coming. And slowly but steadily, persistence always helps. And I started knocking, and people started giving time because then they couldn't say no after a while to me. But over a period of time, they started. I'm seeing the gradual movement in terms of conversation. They said, "Okay, tell me about it." Then they started asking questions like, "How are you better than rear door heat exchangers? How are you better than air cooling? I am already having air cooling." Then the conversation came out about return of investments. It's a journey from I don't want liquid cooling to okay, if I invest, what do I get out of it? That's a transition which I'm seeing happening from today. When I say today now, every possible DC are looking at liquid cooling, either 100% liquid cooled or one data hall liquid cooled based on the nature of GPU, CPUs which they have. Well, is it no more a niche technology? It's becoming a way of life for data centers in the country. Will it is there to stay for a long time, Priya.
Right, Vijay. And it is also, I mean, your response also highlights how the conversations around data center infrastructure is evolving. For years, air cooling has been the default approach, but the rise of AI is fundamentally changing the question. We have now higher rack densities, increasing power consumption, and the need for greater energy efficiency. All of these things are pushing operators to rethink how they design and manage their facilities. And again, it is not about choosing a technology. I think it's also a business decision. The pace at which AI is getting adopted, the economics of operating high density workloads, and the readiness of India's data center ecosystem will also play an important role. How quickly liquid cooling moves from being a specialized deployment to a mainstream standard. Great. When
I'm
we
with you
talk,
on that, Priya. If I can elaborate a bit more on that,
sure, yes.
the growth of the heat of the GPUs as one of the key reasons for liquid cooling to become way of life. For example, the evolution of the NVIDIA chips, if I can take it as an example, have moved from 300 watts and moving towards 2800 watts per chip, and
Hmm.
the size of the chip is coming down, which means the concentration of heat is becoming very high
Hmm.
inside a chip.
Hmm.
And that cannot be, it is simple physics, that cannot be taken care by air cooling. That
Hmm.
is why direct to chip liquid cooling is becoming a fundamental need in an infrastructure. The
Right.
demand for the demand for liquid cooling is growing primarily because of the heat generated by the GPU chips. I'll give you a simple example. All of us use any AI tool like Claude or a Chat GPT for various reasons in our day-to-day life, correct?
Yeah.
So let's say Priya tomorrow wants to say just a hi to a chat GPT or a cloud. The water consumed by the cloud or a chat GPT is roughly around 500 milliliters even for a simple conversation with it.
Hmm.
How does it impact on liquid cooling? That's the amount of heat that generates.
Hmm.
And that requires liquid cooling to optimize the GPU performance.
Right.
So it is a vicious cycle which requires, I need AI today to live my life, but AI needs to optimize itself. I need liquid cooling.
Hmm.
So, and today everybody talks about sustainability, carbon emissions, those kind of conversations.
Hmm.
That is where liquid cooling comes because the liquid cooling, if properly implemented, can reduce a lot of what we call it as, PUE
Hmm.
can be reduced if you properly deployed in an infrastructure. That is why I keep saying liquid cooling is for the present and for a long time future inside the DCs.
Hmm. Hmm. Right, definitely, Vijay. And a very follow-up question with what we just discussed. You mentioned that the heat from the GPU workloads is one of the primary drivers of liquid cooling adoption, not just in India, but I believe globally. But is that the only strongest adoption driver for liquid cooling, or we also have other factors like energy efficiency, ESG commitments, or water management? What are your views on it?
Oh my God, it's a good 360-degree view question.
Yeah,
So if it's okay, I'll give an elaborated answer.
definitely.
One of the biggest challenges while performance everything is the power availability. Okay.
Hmm.
Power and its availability. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
And globally, India and rest of the globe put together, there's a lot of challenges in terms of power.
Hmm.
Whether it's available, if it's available, how expensive it is. And it's a conversation around power is always one of the primary reasons for liquid cooling. Yes, the
Hmm.
GPU heat is very critical, but for the GPU to perform, you need power. Let's say tomorrow Analytics Insight wants to set up a 100 megawatt DC. They have the capex for that.
Hmm.
Even if you have a capex, it's not easy until and unless you get power to set it up. So I will have money. I can buy a Vera Rubin NVIDIA server,
Hmm.
but where do I get the power from? How do I optimize the power? How do I reduce the consumption of power? How
Hmm.
do I reduce the cost of the power? That is where liquid cooling comes in. When somebody discusses ROI with me, I don't tell them, oh, you invest 1 million on liquid cooling, this is what you get. What I deposit, what I get back. The ROI is very different conversation which I have with my customers. One of the biggest ROI outside India is very popular. It's called carbon credits, Priya. You're familiar with carbon credits, surely. So
Yeah.
carbon credits is what customers talk to me because part of my responsibility at Refroid is to take the company global. When I sit with a customer in the Europe or in the North Americas, okay, one of the things they come back and tell me, how do we reuse the heat?
Hmm.
Okay. Heat generated can be reused. That is where liquid cooling plays major role.
Hmm.
Imagine I tell you, you have a data center, a small data center inside your own office, let's say 1 megawatt.
Hmm.
With liquid cooling, you can reuse the heat and light a cafeteria.
Hmm.
Okay, it's a very useful. At the same time, you're playing to the carbon credit for the government. So customers do talk to me, engage with me on those conversations in terms of ESG. At the same time, they also want to buy thousands of GPUs. So it's a great mix of where we land. That is where liquid cooling is in the amazing cusp of the Venn diagram where we can balance out both. We can optimize the GPU performance. We can help on the carbon credits, reduce the PUE. If you pick up any DCA in India, it can vary. PUE can vary from they call it as low as 1.4, 1.45 to 1.6, 1.7. But if there is liquid cooling deployed, if everything is deployed properly, we can bring it down to 1.2 to 3. That is where we come in, or even below if possible. That is where liquid cooling comes in. I'm not even talking about refried. Any liquid cooling as a technology can optimize the power utilization inside the company.
Right.
So that is one part. If I can elaborate further,
Yes.
the if deployed correctly again, the water utilization, there's something called WUE, Priya. The water utilization can also be optimized if liquid cooling is leveraged properly inside infrastructure. Why? Any liquid cooling company, including Refroid, we do use something called dielectric or PG25 or PG40, which can really optimize the water utilization in infrastructure. Why? The inlet and the outlet temperature can be played around with. Inlet and outlet temperature of the racks slash servers compute can be played around with if this is deployed.
Hmm.
So that is where liquid cooling comes in. And what is unique about Refroid, if I can talk a bit about Refroid here, is for the immersion cooling, the liquid is also manufactured by Refroid. So we can bring down the PUE to as low as 1.02 or 1.01 in a best case.
Hmm.
That is a direct impact on the ESG.
Right.
It's a long journey, Priya. A lot of organizations, India and outside, should spend a lot of time. And for them, liquid cooling is not a technology; it's a infra. They should treat it as an infrastructure.
Hmm.
Once they start looking liquid cooling as an infrastructure, they will have a different perspective towards liquid cooling. Today, conversations are around how big is your CDU's coolant distribution unit, what is the capacity, how many heat exchangers you have, what is the redundancy. Those are all no-brainers. But when they start looking at it, what is the impact on the ESG, what is the impact on the PUE, that is when the actual conversations begin, Priya.
I agree with you, Vijay, and I think that was a very well said and a thoughtful response, Vijay, because AI is driving the unprecedented computing demand, but it's equally pushing the overall industry to rethink how data centers consume power, manage water resources, and meet the evolving sustainability expectations. And I mean, I think today a lot of shifts have already happened, I believe, because today enterprises aren't just looking for computing capacity, they are also evaluating whether their infrastructure partners can deliver that resilience and efficiency and measurable ESG outcomes alongside the performance.
That's right. That is becoming one of those key activities for data centers to
Hmm.
go present, one, to their customers,
Hmm.
and two, to the respective government authorities, Priya.
Yeah.
In fact, I should take one moment to appreciate the government, the
Hmm.
facilities they're providing for data centers, and the, if I can use the right word, for lack of English, if I use the right word, incentives for data centers for green energy, they have been really, really supportive, our Indian government.
I agree. I agree with you, Vijay, because while I've been writing articles around the recent tech developments, and of course, while writing about how liquid cooling or water resource management is a challenge in terms of growing our data centers, but government policies and incentives are playing a very crucial role in terms of scaling data centers and ensuring AI sovereignty is playing a very important role. And I think moving ahead, more collaboration from the industry experts and academia and researchers will shape the future of our data center industry.
That's right. I agree with you. A lot of support. I think we're all in the right direction in terms of making India AI capital. We're still not reached there. I think it's a matter of time when all the hands join together. I call it as the ecosystem. When the ecosystem starts synchronized, I think we are ready for a Beethoven.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. True, true, Vijay. And moving ahead, Vijay, now since we spoke about, you explained the advantages of direct to chip liquid cooling and, what are certain advantages that organizations or the overall ecosystem can gain. Now, one of the ways, I mean, a lot of enterprises or leaders are still questioning whether liquid cooling adoption has a greater benefit value. Some leaders, as we talk about more emerging technologies, what happens is probably they are reluctant to adopt these new technologies, or they feel that the ROI that they get from these new developments is not significant enough. So how do you think we should evaluate the ROI of liquid cooling beyond just the electricity savings?
No. Okay, I'll answer the question in two parts. I heard two questions there. Call it selective hearing. Okay, and first thing I heard from you was there is a mind block, if I can use the word, to shift from existing cooling systems
Yeah.
to moving to a new one.
Mm,
Second one is the ROI. So
mm.
I'll answer the question in two parts if it's okay, Priya.
Yeah, sure.
I agree with you that there is a reluctance to move from existing. Why? Because why should I do something which is already working? Why disturb the apple cart?
Mm,
Okay. Which is a very sad way of looking, Priya, because something worked well 5 years before need not work well today.
yeah.
Okay. So that is one of the challenges which we are seeing,
Mm,
and there's a lot of perseverance coming. Whether we like it or not, a lot of people who were there in the decision making, were in the industry for quite some time,
mm.
probably in the last leg of their working cycle. So they don't want to take a risk on new technology.
Right.
I wouldn't use the word retirement here. Probably they were in the last leg of their working cycle where
Mm,
they don't want to take a chance. So they were not keen to move
yeah.
until they were pushed to move towards it. They were all waiting for the next door to install so that they can go try it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But what has happened is, thanks to the demand from the customers, end of the day, customers are the kings. Demand from the customers in terms of performance, not in terms of liquid cooling, in terms of performance. Now they are actually forced to look into ways where they can optimize the GPU performance. That is one, according to me.
Mm,
Second is our again going back to what I said on the government part of it. The government is pushing slowly but subtly on performance and green energy and ESG. In
mm,
India, it's still not a law. I think it's a matter of time where, like the European or the American nation, where carbon emissions, net zero, PUE will become a norm in the
mm,
country. But I can be assured that the country is already working towards that in terms of getting this as part of the way of life, Priya. Once that becomes the law, once it becomes the law, Indians, we always will follow the law to the T and we'll get it done. So these are my two things. What is there from moving from existing infra to a newer infra like liquid cooling. To answer the ROI part, you hit the nail when you say where they are stuck. They're just looking at one aspect of ROI. Trust me, there are multiple ways of looking at the ROI. The simplest thing is the rack density grows up
mm.
if you have liquid cooling. Again, I'm not referring to Refroid alone here. Any liquid cooling will help you to optimize the rack performance. Okay. You save space when you have liquid cooling. I'll give you a practical example, Priya. If you say you have air cooling, okay,
Mm.
and the air needs space in the data hall to disperse itself, correct? So
Right.
you can't cluster the racks together.
Mm,
Whereas in liquid cooling, you can have racks together, multiple racks adjacent to each other, literally touching each other.
mm.
And the heat dissipation is done naturally.
Right.
Whereas in air cooling, if you don't have space, the air won't circulate beyond a particular speed because it will hit each other from each of the racks. So the performance of your servers go down. If I had to exaggerate and tell, you have to switch off your compute itself because there is no space for the air to flow.
Right.
Okay. So this is a simple ROI. You get real estate. Okay. I mean, that is no brainer. Real estate, like power, it's another equally expensive stuff. So
Mm,
these are the things which we are sitting and explaining to the customers to look at it. ROI beyond I invest 1 million, what do I get?
mm.
You get much, much, much more than what you invest on.
Yeah.
Real estate is one, power consumption reduces, so power cost is significantly lower. Then you get more space to hold your racks. You
Mm.
get more compute space and lesser challenges.
Yeah, yeah, true, true. And I think that's a great perspective, Vijay. And it's important that organizations view liquid cooling, not just as a pure energy efficiency initiative, but they should actually become a much broader business decision. I think enterprises today are also under pressure to maximize their compute density or support the increasingly power hungry AI workloads. Um, at the same time, there are factors such as reduced maintenance requirements or better hardware performance. All of these can contribute significantly to the overall return on investment. So, when organizations build a business case for liquid cooling, they are really evaluating a combination of operational, functional, and strategic outcomes rather than focusing on energy savings alone.
I agree with you, Priya. Energy saving is just one byproduct. There is much beyond energy saving when you deploy liquid cooling.
Hmm.
Most of all is the ease of use and the longevity of the solution.
Right, right. With that being said, Vijay, now, of course, we know we discussed about the liquid cooling and probably the macroeconomic aspect of liquid cooling in India. So when you talk about India, what do you expect the Indian data center landscape to look like in the next 3 to 5 years as AI deployments will be scaling unprecedentedly?
It's a very interesting question and very close to my heart.
Hmm.
As I have been constantly saying, India will become the AI capital of the world. Why? First thing is, again, support from the Sarkar. And most importantly, we have the skill set which can help us scale, Priya. One of the most important is the talent. Of course, we need to constantly evolve the talent base.
Hmm.
There is always demand for more. As of today, we are short of talent not because of lack of skill, but because of lack of training, which a lot of people are working on, including CAI.
Hmm.
Okay. So a lot of training, knowledge transfer is happening within the country, and we are constantly, again, in the ecosystem, holding each other's hand to grow this. India, in terms of power, is around a gigawatt currently. We expect it to touch anything between 5 to 6 gigawatt next 3 4 years.
Hmm.
Looks small in terms of number, but look at the percentage. We're talking about 500 to 600 percentage growth in terms of power consumption, actual utilization of power in the next 3 to 4 years time by 2030 31.
Hmm.
Okay, that's the kind of rate of growth we are looking. And a lot of global hyperscalers are moving to India. Firstly, again, as I said, English speaking country and the talent is available.
Hmm.
And we have the expertise and the experience to do things at a faster rate and at a lower cost.
Hmm.
Our Indian labor cost, we all know, it's probably a dollar to a cent in this part of the world compared to Europe or US. And with the growing challenges in global politics,
Hmm.
India seems to be a safer bet for a lot of us.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons Refroid, being an Indian company, is
Hmm.
being globally being looked at, spoken to, where conversations are happening to engage with us to take the Indian company global.
Hmm. Hmm.
We are friends of all, Priya. Everybody likes us.
Yeah.
Indian.
True, I agree with you, Vijay. And I think that was a very wonderful end to our conversation today, Vijay. Uh, India's rapid adoption of global edge technologies, including, not just AI, but blockchain, AR, and VR, is further necessitating a huge rack densities for data centers, which would, of course, increase the heat load. This strengthens the need for much more efficient liquid cooling methods. And again, global competition for digital infrastructure investment has never been more intense. And India is competing from a position of genuine structural advantage, scale of demand, the cost and talent profile that few markets can match. So, thank you so much for your insights today, Vijay, around the liquid cooling technology, how it is important and crucial to ensure a more sustainable scalability of data centers in India. And the data center ecosystem taking shape today is not merely powering India's next phase of digital growth, it is laying the physical foundation for the country's broader economic ambitions for the decades ahead. Thank you for your insights, Vijay. It was lovely chatting with you.
Absolutely, Priya. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I really sincerely appreciate this and I really enjoyed this conversation.
Likewise, Vijay. It was a pleasure having you on our podcast today and a lovely conversation, I must say.
Thank you.
So, this is for our listeners. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion around liquid cooling, its adoption in India, what are certain things you need to keep in mind while deploying these technologies. And of course, I think the right time is now, so that we are able to ensure that we are managing AI workloads much more efficiently and sustainably. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes, and you can view all our previous episodes on Spotify and other leading platforms. Thank you so much.